Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back. In my last video, I shared how I became a workout class instructor this year, and today I want to talk about something that surprised me, learning to say no without feeling guilty. I'll walk through the internal checks that I use to make sure that teaching actually adds to my life instead of becoming another source of anxiety. And if you are new here, this channel is for fellow recovering people pleasers. I use real moments from my day to day life to reflect on what worked, what didn't, and what I'm learning as I deconstruct fawning and try to live more authentically. Last year, I became a workout instructor for a class called Body Combat. A body combat's a high cardio, mixed martial arts inspired workout. I have been taking the classes for about 5 to 6 years, and last year I finally decided to get certified. A lot of instructors teach classes weekly, but at the time I got certified, I had a full time job and I wanted to make sure that teaching didn't take away from being able to take the classes. I decided to start subbing to see if I enjoyed teaching, and I wouldn't necessarily be locking into a weekly commitment. I felt that that was something that could fit into my schedule. With subbing, the instructors, they usually post their classes on an app that basically anybody that teaches a class can sub. I usually don't feel obligated to say yes every time. But there have been a couple instances where an instructor reached out to me directly. And in these cases, I start to feel that familiar pressure to say yes. Previously, I probably would have just said yes to them without really thinking about how I might feel about it. I'd probably say something to myself like, I'm only subbing, I'm not actually teaching a weekly class, so I should be available to teach. I like all the instructors, so I also want to be helpful for them and I want them to like me. One time, this was a couple weeks back, an instructor asked me to sub his class that same day. It was going to be later that night. So I had maybe about 4 to 5 hours to decide if I would take his class. And at first, I was worried that if I didn't sub for this class, it might be canceled and I'd feel bad about it. I knew that the cancellation wouldn't be my fault, but I defaulted to my role as a helper, or honestly, really like a savior role. It's sort of that urge that I have sometimes to sweep in and help others because it makes me feel needed. So instead of saying yes right away, I decided to do something different. I checked in with myself. I focused on how I was feeling about it in the moment. I asked myself, was I willing to skip the class that I had planned to take that night in order to teach? And the first feeling I noticed in my body was disappointment. I was disappointed that I wouldn't get the workout that I was looking forward to. And then I started rationalizing. I started telling myself I'd still get a workout in even if I taught. And I had to stop myself from intellectualizing and just notice and name the feeling. And once I stopped trying to talk myself out of my feeling, I noticed a little annoyance brewing. The instructor had asked me that same day to sub for his class, and so it made me feel cornered into saying yes. And I realized something important, that the current feelings of disappointment and annoyance would eventually turn into resentment. And it wouldn't necessarily be towards the instructor, but resentment towards myself. I would be angry with myself that I ignored what I actually wanted. So that feeling of going against my gut was so strong that I knew I had to say no. I knew it wasn't right for me that day. And I think as recovering people pleasers, we've often learned to suppress our feelings of disappointment or resentment. And I don't think it's always because we're afraid of what other people think. I think it's because deep down, we know we've abandoned ourselves, and that's terrifying. Because if we abandon ourselves in small moments, it makes us wonder where else we might be doing it. Maybe in bigger ways, like with our purpose or our values in life. So I ended up texting him back. I thanked him for thinking of me, and I told him I couldn't sub the class. I didn't give any explanations or any excuses. And honestly, it felt really good to not do something simply because I didn't want to do it. It's easy to tell ourselves we use logic when making decisions. We just think about something enough, we are going to make the right decision. We're taught in school and throughout our lives that a behavior that's rooted in logic will lead to a rewarding or desirable response. But that's not always true because sometimes over intellectualizing, it shuts down our ability to feel and our bodies process emotions for survival. As recovering people pleasers, we need to pay attention to even inklings of resentment. I used to think disappointment meant something was wrong with me, something that I could fix if I just listed enough pros and cons in a checklist. But sometimes a million reasons to say yes does not override that pit in your stomach that's telling you to say no. And that pit is what matters. So now, if you're comfortable, I would love to hear from you. How do you tell the difference between an authentic yes and a yes that might come from obligation? And again, thank you so much for watching and going on this journey with me. We are going to continue to deconstruct people pleasing one moment at a time.